Welcome to People Who Perform, the Real Estate Careers Podcast. Each episode will bring you conversations from business leaders and up-and-coming stars in the commercial real estate industry in Canada. Our guests will share their unique career journeys, passions, and advice on what it takes to be successful in this industry. This podcast is brought to you by Highview Partners, connecting people who perform in Canadian real estate.
I'm your host, Richard Costello, and today I'm pleased to introduce Cindy MacMillan. Cindy is Vice President Asset Management at Grosvenor in Vancouver, where she brings expertise to Grosvenor's master plan communities that will deliver 5 million square feet of mixed-use, multifamily rental and commercial property in Metro Vancouver. Together with Grosvenor's development team, she works on shaping the build-to-core strategy for market and non-market rental, retail and office. Cindy has close to 2 decades of commercial real estate experience with a strong background in finance, leasing and asset management. Prior to Grosvenor, Cindy held various roles over her 17-year tenure that led her to asset management over at Anthem Properties. Passionate about advancing women in business, Cindy is past president of Metro Vancouver and was recently awarded the prestigious Woman of Influence Award. Furthermore, Cindy currently sits on boards for Atira Property Management and Crew Network and has been appointed Crew Network President-elect for 2024. In our conversation today, we'll hear more about Cindy's passion for Crew, her career journey, current role, as well as her lessons and advice for aspiring real estate professionals. Cindy, a big welcome to you, and thank you for joining me on the Real Estate Careers Podcast.
Thank you so much for having me. Very happy to be here.
Well, jumping right into this first part with the goal of getting to know you a little bit beyond what we can read in your corporate profile. So what can you tell us about your life growing up, Cindy, and how that influenced who you are today?
I grew up in the Lower Mainland. I grew up in Coquitlam, so generally saw Vancouver evolve through the 80s and 90s to where we are today. And I think how that, in a way, influences me today is being able to see what's possible in real estate. And I don't know that I knew what I was looking at back then, but there was swaths of green land that had nothing but trees on it, and today is all developed out with housing and retail and mixed-use projects that I can now look back and go, oh, one day that was just a piece of land, and this is what it is today, a thriving, vibrant community. How cool is that? And it maybe helps me visualize what's possible in my current role today. And I would also say, I've always been a competitive athlete, so I've always had that competitiveness in me. Started as a Highland dancer very young, and then got into gymnastics and did that for the bulk of my youth at a pretty competitive level. And I think, bringing that spirit into business is a really interesting thing. I think friendly competition is great amongst your peers and amongst your colleagues. And it certainly has given me the drive and motivation to keep pushing forward when things are tough, and focus when you need to put your head down and get things done.
Yeah, amazing. Did you say Highland dancing, Cindy?
I did, yes.
Yeah. What is that? How did that come about?
I think a lot of people think Highland dancing is similar to the Irish dancing, which is the straight arms and the bouncing up and down. Highland dancing's sort of similar. There's a lot of arm movements, a lot of bouncing. Highland fling is maybe something most people are familiar with, or the sword dance. So these, harken back to early days in Scotland when they would be these sort of celebratory folk dances that groups would do sort of post-war or to celebrate something. And they've continued as traditional dance and are competed, globally even, and mostly at Highland Games in and around. And I would say the most notable Highland Games I ever went to was here in Vancouver during Expo 86. The Highland Games was hosted on the Expo grounds. And so I got to compete there as a young child and experience it from that perspective. And, all the awards and everything had the Expo logo on them. So it was kind of a neat year to be involved.
Cindy, what was the first job you ever had, I guess, outside of real estate?
My first job was at McDonald's, so one of the McDonald's in Coquitlam, and I loved that job. It was so fun. I was still in school at the time, so it was this opportunity to mix with different peer groups in the school that maybe would have otherwise been exclusive. And it was a really fun job. And as most people know, McDonald's is very good at training their staff. They have a pretty rigid structure. They teach a really incredible work ethic in that you should always be working, you should always be doing something. You're trained on all of the stations. I had an affinity for drive-through. I loved talking to people. I loved upselling things. I loved, supersizing, and I loved when my friends came through the drive-through. So it was a really fun experience, and I think there's probably a lot of skills that I learned then that I still pull through in my day-to-day here today.
Yeah. Clean as you go. Was that one of the skills? Like clean your workstation?
Clean as you go, even right down to how to wipe a table in the dining area. There was a very specific technique on how to do everything, how to sweep, how to do this. So yeah, everything had a way to do it. And it was top efficiency and cleanliness, like you said.
Yeah. Yeah, it was also, beyond being a paper boy, that was my first job as well, working at McDonald's. So I had some good memories too. It was nice, a good group of friends. So your education background is in finance and accounting, and I understand that your first role in the industry was as a corporate accountant at Anthem. So did you always have your sights set on real estate, or did you ever consider other industries?
I had no idea what real estate was before joining Anthem. I thought it was people on bus stops who sold houses. Didn't ever even really think about office buildings or shopping centers or mixed use communities or multifamily buildings. Didn't even ever cross my mind. What I was looking for at the time was a company that had an office downtown Vancouver. I was working in Coquitlam at the time, and I wanted something that was exciting, that they were sort of growing and doing something interesting to me. And I was working with a recruiter at the time, and this role came up, and I was actually looking at two different roles at the same time. So I was going through the Anthem track for this corporate accounting role, and I was also speaking with Canada Post to be a letter carrier at the time, and I sort of had this sliding doors moment of, okay, I could go down this corporate route, get into a boardroom, really stretch my legs there, see what I can do, see what this world's all about, downtown, fast paced, really exciting. Or I could do this letter carrier thing, which in my mind at the time was a pretty relatively easy job, and I could go out, deliver mail, have time left over in the day, which I could do other pursuits or continue on in studies, or it sort of had an open-ended slot. And so I was looking at those two, and I think Anthem offered me, or Canada Post actually offered me the role first, and then the Anthem one came through, and I really had to make a decision there. And I guess the allure of the downtown office and the exciting world of real estate that I knew nothing about won in the end, and ended up there and haven't looked back.
Yeah, amazing. So what did you know about the career paths that were available to you, like when you started at Anthem? I guess probably not too much, because it's not that typical of a path to go from corporate accounting to leasing. So how did that come about? How did your sort of career begin to evolve?
Part of my corporate accounting role was doing all of the payroll for the operating company, so what today is Anthem. So I had exposure, I would say, to all the different roles, and didn't have a formal HR department at the time. So as the payroll person who sort of did all of those tasks, I was kind of the de facto HR person in that regard. So I got to know everybody throughout the company. I got to walk around the floor. It was much, much smaller than it was today. Anthem was only 80 people when I started, over 500 when I left, almost 18 years later. And so I really, as a fully integrated real estate development company, I got to learn and see firsthand all of these different facets and categories of commercial real estate and started to get a good understanding of what it was, started to meet the people and see what they did and how they did it. Sales was always a very attractive thing to me. I knew I didn't want to be a corporate accountant, but I was good at it and I knew it was a great foundation. But sales was sort of, back from my McDonald's days, I really loved selling things and supersizing and being successful at that. And it was a pretty big jump, I would say, to go from accounting to commercial leasing. And I was very fortunate at the time that people knew me there, they knew my work ethic, and they were willing to take a risk on an accountant coming over to the world of commercial real estate, still knowing nothing about real estate, a little bit, but really nothing when I look back. And so it was a very steep learning curve. I think I had incredible mentors and a great team at the time that gave me enough room to explore and learn, but also never let me fall off the cliff. So that was that.
Yeah, amazing. And you spent over 17 years at Anthem. So what do you put that longevity down to?
Anthem is an incredible company. I think it's very well known for its culture. And ultimately for me, day to day showing up, my values were very aligned with the corporation's values. My values were very aligned with the leadership. And it's a very well-led, well-organized, well-structured company, while still giving tons of room and opportunity for people who want to grow and want to learn and want to do more. And so I held various different roles over the 17 and a half years, obviously starting in accounting, leasing. I did some property management to learn the operations side, ultimately ended up in asset management. So, really giving me that pathway to explore and learn and grow. And as I mentioned before, Anthem grew so much over that time, from 80 people to over 500. Obviously, the portfolio grew. The breadth of the type of developments they did grew. And so being able to ride that wave and learn alongside that was really incredible. But definitely, strong leadership in a company and really good character of that leadership would make me come back and stay loyal day after day after day.
You left Anthem in an asset management role. Just maybe to ask you about what asset management meant at Anthem, because it's kind of an interesting one. It seems to, or it can certainly mean different things to different groups. So what was the role of asset management like at Anthem at the time?
Great question. And I'm not sure if I still know. We always asked ourselves that all the time. And I believe that it did evolve over the term that I was in there. Anthem's a very hands-on real estate company. So it definitely meant really understanding your assets, really understanding the people and the tenants. A lot of the people that were in asset management at Anthem came up through the leasing side. So, had that rapport with a lot of the tenants. And I think it was really building and stewarding a portfolio and creating value for the owners and the stakeholders, and really also going back to the mission of Anthem of creating real estate that works. So, that isn't just for the shareholders, that was for the communities they do business in, that was for the tenants who had businesses there, that was for the people who visited those centers or lived in those homes. And there was a real drive and motivation to really create these great projects that meant something to the people who experienced them.
So what was the main driver for you to make the move to Grosvenor? This is 3 years ago now?
Almost 2 years. Yeah, it'll be 2 years in March. And for me, I think I could have very easily had a lifetime career at Anthem. It continues to grow today and has since I left. For me, it was just seeking out a new challenge and having grown up at Anthem, wondering, could I do this somewhere else? Or what could I do somewhere else? Or what could I do with this skill set and knowledge base that I've gained, and sort of bring that and enhance that somewhere else. So I was really selective when I was looking around, and it really needed to be a company with those things that made me stay at Anthem: strong values, great leadership, doing something very well, very, very good at their craft. And luckily for me, Grosvenor had created a position, and it fit very well with my skill set. So, it took a little bit of time. It wasn't an instant thing. It's when you are selective or you are looking for senior roles, I think it takes a lot more time than you maybe initially think it would. But it was definitely well worth the wait.
I mentioned a little bit about your role in your intro, but what can you tell us about your current position with Grosvenor?
So almost 2 years in, my role was created specifically for their Brentwood Master Plan community. So it's a role on the investment team as an asset manager, but working daily with the development team on the design and planning of that Brentwood Master Plan community. So even in the pre-design phase, so that means sitting in with the architects and all of the consultants and really making sure that that project and how we're designing it has that long-term investment view on it, because it is a long-term hold project for Grosvenor. So, we want to make sure that we're protecting that value of that asset in the early days. And I think, with these master plan communities that a lot of Vancouver developers do, the developers are fantastic and build these wonderful projects and then hand them over to the operations and asset management teams. And there's always just a bit of a gap or a disconnect in their vision and then what you're able to execute. So Grosvenor really having some foresight and saying, hey, let's get ahead of this and bring that execution mindset into the design phase and make sure that we really smooth out all of those wrinkles. So that's what my role started as. It has evolved. We've since picked up the Oak Ridge Transit Center site. So again, added that to my portfolio, doing a very similar thing there with the development team. And I've also picked up 2 existing assets. So I've got a shopping center over in Victoria and picking up some of our industrial over on Anasis as well. So getting back to that traditional asset management of managing operating centers.
Cindy, what market trends do you believe will have the most significant impact on commercial real estate in the coming years, and how are you navigating these changes?
I think the number one issue today is costs. Everything is so expensive. Construction costs are tough. Materials costs are tough. So when you're looking at, the landscape in the Vancouver market or even the broader region, projects are really, really difficult to do. And, we just saw the city of Vancouver come back on 2 projects that they had, and I think their budget nearly doubled from their last. And so everybody is dealing with this. And whether you've got a project already under construction or you're trying to get it off the ground and launch, these costs are just really making it difficult to pencil many of these projects. So what's that going to do? We've seen this cycle before. A lot of developers will shelf projects. There becomes a bit of a lull. The demand for housing certainly still continues, and it builds up. There's pent-up demand, and then as soon as the market shifts a little bit, it goes crazy into this frenzy. And, that's not a very healthy market cycle, but that's kind of the way Vancouver's always been. And I think, the biggest thing is going to be able to just unlock those projects and fill that pipeline so we can continue to deliver homes for people who need them. And then I think the second thing is going to be AI and big data. I think it's going to change how we do everything. Not just in commercial real estate, everything, but I think there's some really significant things in commercial real estate that can hopefully add some speed to what we do, hopefully take away a lot of the guesswork in what we do, and be able to, aggregate and synthesize data very quickly and get answers very quickly. Again, the integrity of that data is what matters. So, I think that's the big question mark is where do we get it? How do we use it? But I think there's just a ton of opportunity in that. I heard a digital twin presentation yesterday, and they were talking about how entire cities are going to smart cities. So municipalities are adopting this and turning their cities into these digital worlds so that, a developer making an application for a project now has a digital twin that they just plop into this digital city. They can do everything: traffic studies, pedestrian impacts, shadow studies in an instant, right? Or a computer can do it very quickly and potentially speed up that permitting process. So that's just one use of it. Operationally, I think there's just a ton of, if we can get that machine learning and intelligence going on the operations side, we can operate buildings much more efficiently, therefore reducing costs on that side, which is really important. So, I think that's an incredibly fast growing sector that is going to be challenging to get our arms around, but is going to have a very big impact on our industry.
Just to turn the chapter a little bit in this conversation, I'd like to talk about CREW, so Commercial Real Estate Women Network. That's the correct way of saying CREW, isn't it? Commercial Real Estate Women Network.
Yeah, the network is the global body that oversees all of the chapters. There's almost 80 chapters globally, and those chapters typically use the acronym CREW and then their city name, so like Metro Vancouver.
Lots of exciting things happening around this, and Cindy, congratulations on being selected for the Woman of Influence Award by Metro Vancouver late last year. Incredibly well deserved. How did that feel to be selected?
Thank you. It was incredibly humbling, and I would say the selection and the actual winning was just really just icing on the cake. But the nomination process was surprisingly just warm and fuzzy, and that's the first time I had been nominated for an award, and one of my peers nominated me, and through that it helped her out with the application. But it was such an interesting experience to get feedback on you as a person, and perhaps how you've influenced either them or the organization. And it's not the kind of feedback you typically get day to day, so it really opened my eyes in that we need to give more of that positive feedback, because it was that portion of the whole experience was so great, just getting this, people saying really nice things about you and going, oh wow, I didn't know that, and thank you, and so that really gave me a lot of confidence through that process, and it was a really humbling experience. So the whole nomination process was incredible, and if anybody ever gets the opportunity, I highly encourage them to accept that nomination and go through that process. And like I said, winning was icing on the cake and wonderful, but really just being nominated and acknowledged was such an incredible experience for me.
And when you reflect back, what are some of the specific ways in which your participation in CREW has contributed to your professional growth and development?
Oh gosh, it's given me so much, and so much more than I feel that I've put into it. Definitely learned a lot of new skills. So initially joining the Metro Vancouver Events Committee as their director, learning all about event planning. I mean, I did a little bit of it as a personal host, but really seeing that at a corporate level and learning all the background things. That was a great skill to develop. Certainly on the membership side, when I was with that committee, really learning to develop or what the value of membership is, and really tapping into that and giving back to the members, and learning how to navigate the organization in that direction. And then as the year as president, really running a nonprofit organization, running that business for a year was taught me a lot. Certainly, I think I thought it was running the business. I was very excited about that, but the thing that always comes along with that you never think about is the people part, right? So you're also in charge of a bunch of people, and there's always things that you learn in that regard. So I learned a lot, I would say, on the leadership side, with opportunities for that, and problem solving and all sorts of things. And then I think, ultimately what it's given me, and what it really is this broad network of incredible commercial real estate professionals locally, across Canada, across North America, and even across the pond over into the UK and Europe. And, these are peers that I can call for information anytime, whether it's market intel or a referral for somebody in that market, or likewise, they're calling here for something to do with Vancouver. It really is an incredible network, and I think I underestimated the power of that initially when joining Crew, and it's definitely helped me, and it's actually how I ended up at Grosvenor. Was a peer who I sat on the Crew Vancouver board with previously, was the one who really sent me this role and really got me to take a real look at it. And then having that connection, I think, helped me in my application process, just because there was that personal reference that somebody could speak to me for that. So yeah, it's been very beneficial in my career.
Yeah, amazing. And I mentioned in your intro that you're going to be president-elect of the entire Crew network in 2024, and then you'll take the president role in 2025. So this is a big deal. So what can you tell us about this?
It's terrifying and exhilarating all at the same time. So Crew Network globally is 14,000 members. As I mentioned, we're in over 80 major markets across Canada, the US, and have expanded into the UK, Europe, in talks with Australia, India. So it really is a big deal. And the core mission and purpose of Crew is to advance women in commercial real estate. So what I'm really excited about is, all of the things that got me so excited about joining Crew Vancouver's leadership is just a global platform to expand and continue that work at that level. And there's definitely some great horsepower at the network level. We have an incredible CEO who has just really moved the organization forward over her tenure in the last, I think she's coming on 6 or 7 years now. And we've got some global initiatives like a CEO pledge that CEOs can sign and actually measures the progress of what we're doing to advance women in commercial real estate. We've launched Crew Councils, which are peer groups, again, globally, that any member can join and speak about sort of best practices or market conditions or what they're seeing in their specific sector of real estate. And then, really just continuing that global expansion. So, I'm excited to take the helm. And I think what's also very incredible is the Crew Network Convention, which is their big annual convention held once a year in the fall, usually September, is being hosted in Vancouver this year in 2024. And it's the first time convention is being hosted in a Canadian city. We've had leadership summits in Toronto and Montreal in the past, but this is convention where we're anticipating 1,400 attendees, members from our global network to attend, to come to Vancouver, and they'll do things like go on learning excursions to tour our real estate projects. They'll be dining at our restaurants, obviously attending the conference with world-class speakers and whatnot, but really putting Vancouver on the map in the Crew sphere. And I'm really excited to be in the leadership, experiencing that and see what Crew Vancouver chapter and their group is going to do to be an incredible host city.
How do you see the future of the association evolving, and I guess the role that you envision yourself playing in shaping the future direction and impact of Crew? Like what are your goals for it, Cindy?
Yeah, Crew Network has been around for over 35 years. I think the oldest Crew chapters are sort of peering down the horizon of almost 50 years. So Crew's been around for a long time, and your role as president is 1 year. So really, I see my role is continuing the work that Crew has been doing, continuing to push it forward, continuing to push our board and our leadership to think globally, to think bigger, and to really envision what we can be in the future. And in a perfect future, we don't need Crew because women have parity in compensation, in opportunity. That's the dream. Ultimately, if we can get to that. So what are we doing to really create a platform that can continue as women continue to evolve in this industry? Is the professional network, obviously, being able to network with any one of these members globally and get information at your fingertips with just one phone call. And supporting the advancement of women throughout their career in all of their stages. So Crew's launched some amazing programs and is continuing to develop them that reaches right down into the high school level at our education and outreach groups, into the university level with our scholarship program through Crew Foundation. And then as you come into, we've got emerging leaders groups that get together once a year and programs for them to develop, all the way through your mid-career up to C-suite level, where we've got training if you want to join a corporate board, and all of that in between. So really developing that leadership journey along that way so that women have access to that and can continue to advance themselves in their career.
Cindy, let's turn to your advice. So, in your opinion, what are the most significant benefits that effective mentorship can offer both the mentee and the mentor, and how have you personally experienced these benefits in your career?
I've been very fortunate to have what I would call informal mentors around me. And what I would say is these are people who go about their day-to-day in such a way that I just look up to and aspire to be. So I think just naturally being surrounded by very talented, accomplished people has offered me really great mentorship, even though it wasn't necessarily a formal mentor relationship. Those people always had open doors, and I could always go in and ask a question or bounce ideas off of, or just sit in the room with them and listen to how they problem solve and work through issues. So having that exposure throughout my career has been incredible for me. I really enjoy mentoring and have had the opportunity to do that through Crew. And it's such an enjoyable experience. And it always surprises me how much I learn. And even just seeing, if a mentee brings you sort of an issue or wants some guidance or wants to talk through things, it warms my heart how incredibly talented young people are. And it's just, I'm in awe every day. They're incredibly smart. I don't know that they necessarily need my guidance, but it is nice to be a voice of reason or be a voice of assurance or just be there to support people along their journey and really watch them grow. And so I think just having somebody be your champion in a very basic sense is such an incredible feeling because you feel like somebody's got your back. So, maybe your risk goes up a little bit or your confidence goes up a little bit, and then if that person can offer you advice or insight or give you examples of how they've navigated things, that just helps you even more so.
In your opinion, Cindy, what are the most crucial skills or attributes that young professionals should focus on developing in order to succeed in today's business environment, and how can they go about honing these skills?
I would say number one would be, again, coming back to those values. What are your personal values? Who are you? What is your character? And to demonstrate that with consistency. So, again, I see a ton of young people coming out of school. They're all incredibly smart, very well educated, so capable. But what is it that you individually can bring to an organization or can bring to a team or can bring to a project? And, that's your brand. So it doesn't have to be a static thing, and you don't have to have a perfect answer right from day one. I think it's one of those things that will continue to evolve through your lifetime, but having a good sense of who you are and being able to communicate that. And I'd say, my second point is communication. Really being able to have open dialogue, certainly with your performance leader or bosses, and being able to ask for what you want. Because I think that's one thing I maybe didn't fully understand, was that people aren't just going to deliver you gifts and promotions and projects on your doorstep, nicely wrapped up in a bow. You do need to ask for those things. So if
Right.
You're hungry and you want something, you've got to be able to ask for that and show that motivation to your leadership, because everybody's busy in their day-to-day doing their thing. So having that open communication and letting people know where you're at and where you want to go is really important. And then I think also leadership, right from day one, you don't have to be in a senior role to demonstrate leadership. There are opportunities for leadership every day, whether that's, contributing to morale in a tough climate. Anything that you can do to demonstrate your ability of leadership is something that will get noticed and is also great to start practicing early in your career.
How do you suggest young professionals approach failures or setbacks in their careers, and what strategies do you recommend for turning these experiences into kind of learning opportunities? And I guess it doesn't even have to be advice for young professionals. This applies to anybody.
Definitely. I think just accepting the fact that you are going to fail, probably more than once throughout your career, and knowing that it's going to be okay is a great place to start. And there's always opportunity to learn from that. And also to pay attention, and as you see, other people take a misstep, learning from that as well. And should you be given the opportunity, maybe helping lift them back up. Again, one of those great little leadership opportunities that might pop up. So yeah, I think failure is scary. But you look at some of the great entrepreneurs and visionaries of the world, and they thrive on it, because for them, it's one less thing that they have to guess on. They know that doesn't work, and they can continue honing in on what is going to work. So, I wouldn't say, I think I'm a lot more risk averse and tend to beat myself up a little bit on failure. So my advice would be not to do that, but I appreciate that that's easier than it sounds. But really, taking that and growing from it. And I think as long as you're continuing to learn and grow, failures is more just learning opportunities more than anything.
Cindy, what's the one piece of career advice you would give your younger self?
I definitely go back to those three crucial skills. And I would also say to my younger self, I would say everything's going to be fine. And you have my permission to take a little bit more risk, or be a little bit more bold, or be a little bit more aggressive in what it is that you want. And I don't know how much that would have made a difference in my career, but I think it would have been a mindset shift that I wouldn't have had to work as hard on later in my career. And I think if you can start early in your career with a different mindset, again, you sort of practice having that, and you just sort of adopt it as a natural state of being. So yeah, I would say be more bold.
And how do you ensure that you continue to seek out new experiences and challenges outside of the professional sphere? And how do these experiences contribute to your growth and sustained motivation? So maybe this is like an outside of work, what kind of fills the cup, I guess?
For me, it's definitely activities and athletic pursuits. Again, keeping that competitive spirit alive for me is what gives me a lot of energy and gets me out of bed. And I would say two big things that I've really accomplished in the last 5 years that I'm pretty proud of is during COVID, I finally bit the bullet and bought a road bike, which I think had for the last decade prior had said I was always going to do, but was always too scared to do. But given, things were closed down, and so got a road bike, got on it, figured out how to shift the gears and do all that, and bought the kits and the spandex and the clip-ins and fell over a few times, and really pushed through that learning curve of, hey, failing every day. I'm out and I fall over in clip-ins and I look like a bit of a turd. But you know what? You get back up. It's okay. And learn. And now it's just a part of my day-to-day, and it's something that I love, and I can get out. I've done Fondo a couple of times now, and it's something that I really enjoy. And I would actually call myself a cyclist now, which, 3 years ago I wouldn't have. And similarly, skiing. I never did skiing as a young person growing up. Again, we were in gymnastics, so couldn't risk the injury. And it was something I always wanted to do, and I finally, again, just applied myself. This will be my third ski season, and so learning to ski as an adult when most of my friends are much better And I'm on, the Bunny Hill or the green runs, just trying to get myself down the mountain. But I've got an incredible friend group who've, been very patient, and I'm a much better skier now. But I think realizing, those are things that I wanted to do, but just seemed so out of reach to me as an adult, because everybody else I knew had done them their whole lives growing up, and it was just so easy. They just throw themselves on a bike or strap on some skis and away they go. And, for me, I was terrifying and shaking every time I'd be getting dressed or getting ready to start these events. And I'm much more comfortable in them now. And so just seeing that, those things are in reach. And if you do apply yourself, you still can learn skills, and you still can get decent enough at something that you can actually enjoy it. I think I'll always continue to challenge myself with new experiences. I love learning new skills. I love challenging myself, even though a lot of the time it terrifies me. Also, public speaking in front of very large crowds with my new role with crew is probably going to be my next big challenge. But yeah, I'm also excited because I love learning, and I think it keeps your mind and spirit young and alive.
Good for you. I mean, and I think, Cindy, you're fantastic at this, because you're very authentic, and I think people will look to you and the things that you've been trying and putting yourself out there, whether it's like riding the Whistler Fondo after just getting on a road bike is pretty amazing. I think you're very humble. Keep on rocking. One of the things that you said to me when we had a coffee a few months ago to kind of discuss this idea was, like, growing up doing gymnastics, you said that you learned how to fall, and I think you were thinking more that this was helpful for like skiing or maybe cycling when you get your cleat stuck or something. But it's almost like it applies, doesn't it, more generally to just like trying new things, and like it's okay, things will work out if it doesn't quite go to plan, or if you do have a tumble or whatever the case might be.
Yeah, definitely. And a little plug for gymnastics for anyone who has kids. It's a great foundation for, like I said, all other athletics. To your point, you learn how to fall very early on in gymnastics training. You jump off of all sorts of high things and learn how to, absorb the fall and keep your limbs in check so that you don't break things or sprain things. And that has, to your point, been a great skill for learning different athletics later in life. Certainly, I've taken a couple of tumbles down the ski hill and on the bike. So being able to protect myself and doing that as an adult, because things are a lot crunchier as an adult than they are when you're nice and young and malleable.
Yeah, no. Well, Cindy, thank you very much for your time and for doing this, because your advice is amazing, and I hope a lot of people get to listen to this and they get to learn a bit more about you before I think we start seeing and hearing a lot more from you in your, especially in your roles at Crew, which is super exciting. So congratulations and thank you, and look forward to seeing you on the stage soon, Cindy.
Well, thank you. This has been such a pleasure, and you're a wonderful host. It's been very easy to chat with you, so thank you very much.
Well, thanks, Cindy.
Thank you for listening to People Who Perform, the Real Estate Careers podcast brought to you by Highview Partners, a talent search and recruitment firm focused exclusively on Canadian real estate. If your real estate team is looking to find the best next hire, or if you're ready to make the best next move in your career, then reach out to Highview Partners today. Follow us on LinkedIn and visit us at highviewpartners.ca.